Okay, let's try that again. Roll camera. Roll sound. Action.
Well, hello everyone. Welcome to our first episode of What the Film. We are a podcast where we dissect movies, existential dread, and for this week, the bizarre idea that politicians should even touch technology. We'll get into that in a second, but I'm Vishaal Reddy.
And I'm Kevin Satterfield.
And this podcast is a wild mix of film news, personal grievances, and of course, our hot takes that might just get us canceled, even though you can't get canceled in this day and age, it seems.
No, doesn't happen.
But I think what I will say is that we have been wanting to do this for quite some time. But before we get into like the what, the why, and the who, how's your week? How's your temp check? How's your April Fools?
It's a test today. I'm not gonna lie. I mean, this holiday is wrought with just people playing jokes and pranks and as I like to say, ain't shit funny. You know, that's really what it is.
Are people still doing that to you?
I mean, if you go on social media, I feel like they purposely post things, waiting for people to fall for them, and then I, being somewhat gullible, somewhat naive, and especially when it comes to movies, like if you post something, a casting update, and it sounds exciting, I'm gonna fall for it. Like earlier today, someone posted that 106 in Park is gonna be rebooting with Keke Palmer, and honestly,
wait, I saw that.
It's an April Fool's joke.
And Kai Cenat,
Yeah,
what the fuck is that man's name?
But like that was an April Fool's joke.
Oh, I thought it was real.
That's what I'm saying.
I was like, she really, really likes money.
Because you could believe it, though. She'd be great at that.
She'd be amazing at it. He, not so much. That's where I was like, I mean, look, I love Keke, capitalistic queen.
She's working hard, though.
Oh, no, she deserves. She is a prime example of why capitalism works.
Right, truly for her.
And benefits all of us with her. Yeah. Like she's a walking meme. She's talented. No, we like her. Yeah. And and also One of Them Days is on Netflix, so I can finally watch it.
That's true. Did you see that opening weekend though? Did you see that?
No.
Yeah, you should have.
I should have supported.
The theater experience is really cool to like just have everybody
everyone said that
and just laughing. Yeah.
I just didn't get to it.
Yeah, that's fair. It was like MLK weekend. It was like the beginning of January. People are tired from the holidays. I get it.
Yeah, I was going through a bout of serious depression and was in my bed.
I mean, look, it's January, February, the hardest months.
It was tough. Winter was tough. Oh, but the week, you had a time getting here. Something happened on the bus?
Yeah. Hey, gang. So everyone's good. I took the bus over to where I'm currently recording. I took the
first mistake, getting on a New York bus.
No, but here's the thing. Everyone knows intra-Brooklyn travel is the worst. There are plenty of reels, plenty of TikToks about it.
It's awful.
There's no easy way to get from literally Crown Heights to Prospect Heights. So you're forced to take either the bus or an Uber. I took the bus because I'm responsible and I was running ahead of schedule. Mm-hmm. Little did I know that there would be an older gentleman on the bus basically haggling people for money. He was just constantly asking every person that came on off, do you have 25 cents?
Now older, are we talking like, are we talking 40s, 50s, 70s? Are we talking our age, 30s?
70 plus.
Ooh, okay, rough. Okay,
older. I'm very respectful of my elders, so I'm never going to call you old, but you're older. And it got to a point where he literally started poking this one guy with his cane in the face because he would not respond to him when he asked for 25 cents. He proceeds to get off the
25
bus.
25 cents? You're going to poke someone for... Wow. Okay, I would have given him money. Like, I would have...
Well, what if you don't have it, though?
This is coming from someone who never has cash, so you're absolutely correct.
Like, what? I don't have 25 cents. I don't have $1.
No.
So he gets off the bus. Then another woman who's sitting in the front of the bus proceeds to tell everyone else on the bus that this man is also a pedophile in the neighborhood and that everybody knows it. To which I'm like, what kind of fucked up Tuesday am I living in? Like, what are the showrunners of my life doing where I need to be witness to this physical attack and then learning that this man is a Payal?
I love that this lady knew him and say, "Oh fuck no, we're not doing this," and she sat up in the bus.
I bet she had like the deepest sigh in her voice when he got on the bus, because apparently everybody knows this guy,
Wow.
and it just was not the way I wanted to start my post work commute. However, we made it in one piece, and allergies are somewhat kicking my ass. But what else is new? It's April, you know.
Yeah. Well, I'm sorry that you had to deal with coin snatching files who were poking people in the face. But salute to that lady in the back.
Yeah. Well, it was a little too late,
Oh.
but you know, whoever you are, if you're watching this or listening to this, we appreciate you for your service, and hopefully you let us know next time. Yeah. It's
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
lovely. Glad to
Yeah.
hear it.
How's your week?
My week has been okay. I had a little bit of a, like I mentioned, in my 30s, in my mid 30s now, squarely. And I had a little bit of a bender on Saturday where I just continued drinking for what I thought was a responsible amount of time. But I ended up having a Sunday where my body just said, "You fucking
No.
idiot. Why did you drink all those martinis? Why did you
Yeah.
drink
Martinis. You were drinking
martinis?"
martinis throughout the night?
I did everything. We went
Oh.
from gin to vodka
Mm,
to tequila. I had rum.
mm,
I never drink
mm.
rum.
Yeah, you had every type of alcohol possible.
Yeah, it was not great. And then, I got home. I got home at, a respectable hour,
Yeah. Yeah.
but still felt awful.
Yeah.
Um, Combined with my allergies, and then I ended up having some auditions this week, and I, for the first time in my life, got hit with "Oh, you're a little too old for this part" feedback,
Mm,
which was tough.
yeah.
That was a tough thing to
Yeah.
hear as someone who um, is only 34, but
Mm.
I can't play 25 anymore.
Yeah, you can't. You can barely even party with them anymore, to be honest.
I mean, yeah, the hangovers are not great. But I'm just gonna continue to let myself be delusional and live in this space because that's all I can do. And
Yeah.
the world's ending, so like, why does
Yeah.
it matter?
Yeah. Now, okay, I have to ask a question. If you were given an opportunity to take a substance like product to
Mm.
create a younger, more perfect version of yourself,
Mm-hmm.
would you do
No,
it?
no, I wouldn't because I know myself, and the Margaret Qualley part in me would absolutely wreak havoc on that body and be like, no, we can't.
Yeah.
We don't care. We would
Yeah.
abuse it. We
You,
absolutely would.
you just know that there'd be no sense of control.
Would you?
Mm, no.
I guess the
No.
answer is, could we? Like,
You
would
do
we
anything.
would we
Yeah.
be respectful of the balance?
The balance. No.
Because we're one.
Because we are one.
What if we are each other's substances?
Ooh. Okay,
Like, what if,
mayhem.
yeah, what if, look, we're still listening to it. Actually, knowing our luck, we're each other's tethers from us. We are
Tethers. Oh,
not.
I can't.
But
I
who's
can't.
Lupita and who's evil Lupita?
I'll be Eva Lupita because actually I am the real one.
Oh, okay. So, okay, fine.
Yeah.
Conspiracy theorist about the ending of that movie.
No, okay, that's not conspiracy theory. That literally was the plot of the movie. The real one ended up downstairs, trapped away. It was so actually that was really devastating. Probably another conversation, but Us is truly, truly underrated, I think.
So, like we mentioned at the top of this, Kevin and I have been talking shit about movies and entertainment for years, and we've met years ago, um, and we bonded over film and Beyonce, and that was probably 99% of the conversations that came our uh, of our hang, and I think that was like 7 years ago, 6 years ago. Yeah. Um, So I guess my question for both of us is, why are we doing this? And what is our relationship to film, to movies, to entertainment? Like, why? Everyone has a podcast. Like, what do you think?
Well, what
If
do
you
you
want
think
to ask
first?
me, I mean, I think I'll start with like my relationship to film, because I grew up in Tennessee, right, in a tiny little town called Johnson City. If you've heard Wagon Wheel,
I'm from the
John,
South as well, so I have.
no, oh, yes, I forget. Like
Yeah,
people
yeah,
don't know it,
yeah,
and they'll
yeah,
scream it at me. Well, in Wagon Wheel by Old Crow Medicine Show, um, they scream my town's name, but there wasn't a lot to do, and so in my summers I would like go to India. My parents would send me to India because they were just like, we need to get rid of one kid. We need space, and I remember watching a lot of movies on in the big screens over there, and like in India it's a full experience, and there are thousands of seats. People are cheering, they're standing up in their seats, they're throwing popcorn at the theater because a lot of the movies that I grew up with were like 90s and early 2000s Bollywood movies,
hmm
which are big musicals, and um, I got to see a lot of independent Indian cinema, which was wonderful in different languages. And so that is honestly what made me obsessed with film and made me also want to become an actor. Like
hmm
that's literally why I started doing theater as a kid and have continued to unfortunately continue to, be be in this business that
Yeah,
causes me anxiety and lots of stress, but I still love it. And
yeah, yeah.
so I think that for me, it's watching films is such an escape because I'm in this business that is a reminder of like unpredictability. Like one minute you
hmm
could be auditioning for like the role of your lifetime or in a pitch meeting for something you've written, and then the next minute nothing could happen. But you do get to go see other pieces of art. You're like, oh, someone
Yeah,
did this, someone made this, and
right, right.
despite the chaos, like I wouldn't, I just love it. I love film. I love it. I could talk about it all day, all day. There's,
Yeah,
and I'd be totally happy. It lifts my mood, which is one reason why, um, I wanted to do this with you because we have some increasingly unhinged takes that
yeah.
I fear we share with the world. But um,
They're ready for it though. I fully believe that.
yeah, if anything, we'll listen to this and be like,
Yeah, yeah. Don't you like
sure.
listen? Don't you like watch your own Instagram stories and just kind of like just you're so enamored by your humor and how beautiful you are. That's what I do at least.
I literally looked at myself in the mirror today and went,
Yeah,
God damn, you look great.
yeah. And you should, and as you should. All my mom would love Victoria Monet. She said it best.
I've been thinking about her lately.
Oh, what's good?
Like, yeah, what are you up to? Like, what's she up to? I
I
want to
think she
know
needs to
what's
take a
next.
break. She had a pretty big launch with Jaguar 2. She could take a break. She had a great tour. I
She
want
did.
I want her to come back feeling refreshed, feeling rejuvenated, feeling inspired. So don't take forever, but know that you can take
And
your time.
I don't. I'm a fan that wants music now.
This is the problem with stands. This is
No,
exactly the
no, no, no.
problem.
I'm just kidding. If anything, you'll understand from this podcast is that I'm a chaotic demon, but at the same time, because I'm in the business and I get
Yeah,
what it like we both get what it takes to get something made. Like,
right,
yes, we'll
right.
probably have some takes and opinions that are absolutely insane,
Yeah,
but I we're very mindful of the fact that it takes so much work to
yeah,
get anything made and
yeah,
for an artist to succeed in any way. I
yeah.
just like I was listening to Jaguar and Jaguar 2 the other day and I was like, God damn.
So good.
And
So
we got to see her at
we did.
Terminal 5, which will be the smallest room she will play now,
Ever
like
from this
ever.
point moving forward, right?
Yeah,
I'm
which is
glad we got
amazing.
her young. We got her. Well, not that she was young, but like just kind of budding in her
Wow, old
solo.
shaming.
No, stop.
Wow, wow, wow. You heard it here. You heard it here, listeners. Yeah, what are you
Let,
doing here?
let, what am I doing? Literally in his building. What floor is this? The sixth floor?
We don't need to give details about my building or my dwellings or where
They
I'm
don't know
at.
where you live, but yeah, had some internet issues at home, everybody. So here we are. in Vishaal's basement. Yeah, so, very similar to you, grew up with a family that movie going was always an experience. I remember seeing like movies as young as like 5, 6, to be honest. And I remember movies like Dreamgirls and movies like, oh my gosh, like Blue Streak with Martin Lawrence, and movies just became like a natural part of what we did as a family, as a community. Um, and that is when I think my love for film started, because ultimately it telegraphed and allowed me to better understand my own emotions. And it also, I think, in a really cool way, allowed other people to understand my experience, especially as I came to my queerness, as my Blackness became a bigger part of my larger story. And so film just became this really digestible language that I could give people and say, like, just watch this film, or like watch this, and like tell me what you think about this. And that's how it started. And then, as you mentioned, like you've come into film as a professional, or you've come into entertainment as a professional, and so now it is a bigger part of not just your personal life but also your professional life. And for me, not to the same extent, but having done the documentary and having embarked into that gave me a lot more empathy for the experience and for the process in a way that I couldn't really understand because I'd never really done it. But ultimately, my love for film grew deeper because I knew how much work went into that process. And so now I look at this podcast as a way for us to not just talk about our own personal identities and what we think and feel about film, but also a way for us to apply the things we've learned as professionals in the industry to what we're seeing unfold for us.
Yeah. And I think that I think our perspective is also a little unique in that we're both people of color, we're both queer. I think we're both pretty tactful, but also are, unapologetic in how we sort of feel about certain things. But hopefully, listeners, this is fun. This is funny. Some of it, we are not critics.
Yeah.
We are just like every other normal person, and so we're gonna talk shit, but we're gonna do it in a way that hopefully is just like everybody else.
We've already gone on tangents on Victoria Monet and Keke Palmer. So if that doesn't give you any insight to who we are as people, then it's okay. But this is how we are gonna engage with you all as an audience about what we've got on our plate. Which
and if you hate that, then like just turn it off.
Turn it off. That's fine.
Yeah, go listen to something else.
Yeah, maybe Victoria Monet. I don't know.
Maybe Joe Rogan, because you're probably Republican if you don't like us. Okay.
Okay, I think there's a Venn diagram that's actually 2 circles.
Nope, you either like us, or you are alt-right.
I don't know about that. Okay, that's fine.
But if you are alt-right and want to leave us a review,
don't.
Please. No, please. We could use all. I'm just kidding. Please don't. We'll edit this out. Anyways, what we plan on doing is each week we will take a couple of segments where we will discuss some of the week's biggest film and entertainment news. Some good, some bad, some problematic, some
exciting.
Yeah.
Some let's figure out how we feel about this, maybe.
Yeah. And we'll see what happens. Then we'll dive into our main segment, which we will discuss a film of the week that Kevin and I watch independently, and we will discuss, and we'll get into that later. And then finally, we will end with a hot take that will probably get us into trouble, but it's okay. It's okay. It's going to be fine. I am slightly scared for some of these hot takes that I have, because I have a running doc on my phone now of just things that people agree with, and I'm like, I don't like that.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that because I haven't seen your list, so I'm pretty sure I'll be surprised by 1 or 2 of them.
Yeah. Okay. Well, shall we take a little break and then we can get into our next segment?
Let's do it.
Great. And we are back. Okay. So now we are here, about to do the segment that we've all been waiting for and that you all have hopefully been anticipating. And once again, Kevin has not heard the name of this segment. So, it is called We Sat Through This So You Don't Have to.
Which is going to be a name of the podcast.
Yes, but we thought too long.
Yeah, too long.
Too long.
That's fair.
So,
That's fair.
for context,
I've heard it, but just not the
yes,
segment.
yes,
Yeah.
I thought it was apropos to do it here.
Yeah, that's fair.
Each week, Kevin and I will watch a movie, and we will independently rate and review it in our own homes. And in the end, we will provide our own Rotten Tomatoes score, or Rotten Podmatoes, if you will, based on the following criteria: story and pacing, acting and characters, directing and style, emotional impact, rewatchability, and X Factor. So this week, the first film that we are going to start with is Mike Leigh's Hard Truths. And we decided to start this podcast off with films that we felt like should have been a part of the awards conversation and weren't. And in this case, these were two films that were a part of the awards conversation in some aspects, but didn't actually make it to the Oscar stage, which we felt like was unfortunate. There were some great performances. There was some incredible directing and cinematography and all sorts of things. So we just felt like they deserved a little bit of light. And I don't know Kevin's opinion on All We Imagine, which will be our second film, but let's discuss Hard Truths.
Yeah, let's do it.
Great. So I guess before we dive in, what was your relationship to Mike Leigh and his work before watching this film?
So I have only seen one other Mike Leigh film, which is Happy Go Lucky with Sally Hawkins. Was it 2008?
Mm-hmm.
It's my first Mike Leigh film. But then, especially after seeing Hard Truths, which we're going to talk about, I now want to go back and do a retrospective and watch Secrets and Lies, which came out in '96. So it's not that deep.
Mm-hmm.
I can say that I understand all of Mike Leigh's ethos as a director and as a creator, but what I have seen and what I have been given, I've really enjoyed.
Yeah. I went into this kind of being a full fan.
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of his movies, but Secrets and Lies has been a film that has stuck with me for years, who also features the incredible Marion Jean-Baptiste, who is also one of the leads of Hard Truths. Happy Go Lucky is also a film that I really enjoyed. It was a very unique film. And with any Mike Leigh project, they are very raw, unflinching, but also they feel like a slice of life of just people existing and living in the world, and sort of the good and the bad, the ugly of like what it is to be a human. And Hard Truths has got all of those ingredients. And so Hard Truths, for the listeners, for context, Hard Truths is about Pansy, who's this, I hate to use the word angry, but very frustrated and isolated, brutally honest human being to a fault, who I think oftentimes lashes out at her family, at strangers, anyone who is willing to engage with her. She's yelling at them or has something to say, and she sort of builds walls as builds walls around herself, but she secretly like longs for a connection. But the only person that consistently sticks by her side and defends her is her ever cheerful sister Chantal, who's kind of extraordinarily optimistic and admirable, and sometimes it's infuriating to watch her just be that thing. And the film explores, trauma, generational pain, and kind of this idea about whether happiness is a choice or is it just an illusion. So there's a lot.
Yeah.
There's a lot to unpack here. So I kind of wanted to just ask you, like, what were some favorite moments from this film?
Well, it's interesting you shared that the way you interpret it is that she's someone that is, I think, longing for connection or like wants connection, right? And actually, that was the one thing that I feel like was not part of her intentions or motivations while watching the film. I felt like, yeah,
Wow, you're disagreeing with
yeah.
me? Wow, fuck you. Okay,
This won't be a
listeners,
good
this is
podcast
great.
unless we actually have a
This is
dialogue.
done.
Okay.
No, you must
Yeah.
agree.
Yeah.
As the dictator of Warner Brothers' future,
Future.
you must.
Future. No, but all that to say, I felt like over the course of watching the 90-minute film, what became increasingly difficult to watch was just how unnerving and how static of a character she was. And knowing that when the film starts, she's miserable. And then when the film ends, there's a version of miserable that you can see. And it's so open-ended that you don't know if she's going to have the closure or she's going to like take that next step, which we'll talk about later. But to that end, the scene that really captured me the most, or one of the scenes that captured me the most, was when you finally get to see her break down in both laughter and tears. And there is just a menage of emotions that are all flowing and coming to her as they come. And the rest of her family who's sitting with her in this kitchen are just forced to like watch her and just observe just how just the range of emotions that she is now expressing in ways that she has not expressed for the entirety of the film. And you as the audience are also sitting there like, what the fuck am I watching? This one is low-key crazy. But it was just a little, it was off-putting, but I think in a way that really drives home the point of the film, which is that this is someone that is just hard to be around, and she is a hard truth to swallow.
Interesting. That's interesting. Yeah, because I did think that she, at the end of the day, was trying for connection, but the world had sort of beat her down in a way. And the film ends in this sort of penultimate scene where we do find out, after all of these sort of vignettes of her in her house with her family going out into the world and sort of dealing with people that she deems as nuisance in her life, it we come to find out that Chantal and Pansy go to a gravesite and their mother has passed away, and it you infer that Pansy is the one that found her as she passed away. And there's this really cathartic moment at the end with the family as they're celebrating Mother's Day, out of all things. And you juxtapose Chantal's family that's bright, ebullient, like she's got these daughters that are so wonderful and loving, but also just full of life. And then Pansy's family, who are beaten down. And even through all of that, she starts laughing and then sort of breaks down into tears. But even through that, I was like, she's just wanting people to see her. But I don't disagree with you. I think that's that's an interesting point, in that it's like, does she actually want happiness, or has she just given up?
Yeah.
One
One of the questions that I asked myself, or one of the questions that I asked after watching it, is even with all that has happened to her, does she still have a choice in being happy, or does she still have a choice in um, projecting the type of joy and peace and warmth that she says she wants? Because she's angry even with random people on the street. There's that one scene where she's sitting in a parked car, and there's a man who's looking for a parking spot. He politely asks, and she goes on a whole fucking rampage. And then her anger being projected onto him is what makes him angry back at her. It's like she is almost the source of all this discomfort that she's projecting onto the world. And so I can't even say that the world is trying to like beat her down. The world is just trying to exist, and she is just miserable in existence.
I felt like that the tears at the end was a cry for help in many ways. But this is a film that, like, I went into this. The opening shot is just outside, and you hear like a bunch of light noise and like daily life, and then the minute you get into this house, it is pristine. It is someone that is living there has OCD. And when you meet Pansy, you don't know why she is the way she is, and you also there are certain things that Mike Leigh does within the script, and with also showing us that she could be agoraphobic. Um, she could just have a reticence to like anybody looking at her or being in her space. Um, she could have OCD. Like there's many inferences to like what could be wrong with her, but at the end of the day, or I shouldn't say wrong with her, but like what could be
At the
going on
source.
with
Yeah,
her.
yeah.
Yeah, but at the end it doesn't matter because
Right.
she's just feeling emotionally
Right.
wrecked throughout. Nobody can help
Right.
her. And it seeps into her relationships with her son and her husband, who, shout out to those actors, fantastic. Actually, shout out to all the supporting
Yeah.
actors. They were all so
Incredible
good.
cast. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, I think one of the moments that I still laugh out loud in is the supermarket scene.
Yeah, where she's at the
Pansy
register.
goes to the supermarket. Yeah, and she's just at the register, and something happens where she starts yelling at this person that is just far enough away from her where there's a person in the middle of this argument, and then the supermarket, the counter person is also like gets
Yeah.
involved. And it is truly, it is how I feel when I go to the
You
supermarket and
don't feel
someone is
that
so
way. You don't.
no, when someone is slow or when someone can't get their shit together, let's move.
Yeah. Well, she gets
I
mad at the cashier because the cashier is not smiling and she's not being pleasant while packing the groceries.
Yeah, and she was right.
No. Like, she's bizarre.
No, she's absolutely bizarre.
Bizarre.
Some of it is but it just read it read like theater to me in a way, and that like I felt like there were such heightened stakes in that one little scene, and the acting was so wonderful and so lived in, and every person played their part as if like, who the fuck is this
Yeah.
woman and why is she speaking to me? We're just trying to mind our own
Right.
business. And there's also another scene where she goes to the dentist that is just any scenes with her and doctors. She goes to her general practitioner and a dentist as well, and she just barely disguises contempt
Yeah. Yeah.
for anybody, but then the professionals are also like trying to remain professional. And I just felt like the acting was so apropos of when we are in professional environments and we just have to deal with clients or people, we just put on a brave face and we talk to them as if they're children, and we see if they react. And more often than not, they don't.
Right.
They're just too in their head, and too worried about the world at large. So I just thought that there's little moments like that that I felt like were really wonderful.
Yeah.
One thing to also highlight is just the process that Mike Leigh puts actors through in filmmaking. I feel like is just really, really special and wonderful. For those that don't know, what often happens on a Mike Leigh film is that 6 months before they even start shooting, he doesn't really have a script, barely has an idea, and he gets a group of actors together that he really, really enjoys. He also doesn't do self tapes. He does not do. He like wants people in a room to audition for you and have a conversation with you. And for up to 6 months, they just go and rehearse and they build a story and they build a script from there. And by the time they get to set, while some of it's improvised, a lot of it's just so lived in, and it feels like theater. But that doesn't happen.
Right.
It's really hard for actors to sign on to a project of his because 6 months is a long time to rehearse and then to go and film something.
Right.
But like the performances were just so outstanding that I love it. That's my dream. That is like an actor's dream to do something like that. And they also rehearse in spaces that are very similar to like the environments that they're going to be in, which I find really interesting. He did this on Vera Drake. He did this on Secrets and Lies. And yeah, I was a fan of this, and I've met many. I don't know if you have, but I have a few pansies in my family, pansy-esque people in my
Yeah,
family that I feel like are just kind of angry at the world, but in,
yeah,
the case of Indian people, we don't ever want to show
right,
emotion or express anything, and so we just bottle it up until it
yeah,
explodes. Um, and this was like a refreshing look at somebody who honestly just like doesn't this is how her frustrations
yeah,
manifest,
yeah,
and you're not sure as to like why or what or how this is
yeah.
happening, but yeah.
Another really memorable scene that I remember just kind of gripping me was when Pansy and Chantel go to their mother's gravesite. Chantel being played by Michelle Austin, fantastic. They're at the gravesite, and Pansy is almost reliving the trauma of discovering their mother. I, um, talking about what it was like growing up with with her, and there's just a moment where Chantel and Pansy hug, and all Chantel can say is, "I don't understand you, but I love you." And
Mm,
I think one of the most impactful part about the movie is that it forces you as the audience to confront the hard truths of some of the people that you have in your own life, some of whom are your family members or friends who are just difficult to live with or difficult to love, and the people that you feel like you can't break through to, and you've tried maybe, but you've constantly come up against roadblocks. And unfortunately, we all have our own pansies and our own hard truths to live by that I think make this film just uncomfortable, because you're realizing that like this life that she's living and this person that she is no different than someone else in your orbit.
it makes you kind of wonder how people that are like this, because they exist
Yeah,
everywhere,
everywhere.
how they manage to like live their everyday lives with such deep unhappiness or frustration with the world. And
Yeah.
I think even the characters of her son and her husband, Curtly and Moses, they're so disengaged by
Hmm.
her, but also by the world in general as well. And it's not clear if it's because of her
Hmm.
and her behavior, but it comes across as rude or unfriendly. But I think it reveals a much sadder
Yeah.
truth to their experience. And um, yeah, I often think that the film leads up to the ending where we have this breakthrough with Pansy, which is very exciting, and there's a glimmer of happiness in her. And as that happens, her husband gets injured while on a job, and she has to basically be caretaker, and we're sort of left uncertain as to, can she do this? Does she want to do this?
Yeah. Yeah.
She's kind of found some happiness in something, and that's very exciting. But like, does this experience, is it going to stop her? And we never know, because the
Right.
film, it's just a small slice of life, which I think is, you know really really lovely. And I think I this is a film that when people have asked me if I liked it, I said yes, I liked it a lot, but would I recommend it? I don't know. It's not like the happiest of
Yeah.
films, but it is just like a masterclass in direction, in performance,
Yeah.
and it's this idea of, how do we care for like other people when we can't even care for ourselves?
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
I mean, I guess we'll get to the scoring rubric, but I would definitely recommend the movie, and to the points that you shared, and also to the point that, I mean, I guess my philosophy is like, I don't want all my movies to be like so positive that it doesn't allow us to see the humanity in everybody.
Mm,
And
mm-hmm,
so,
mm-hmm.
if this movie helps you better, have the language to understand someone else that maybe feels or looks and like has the texture of a pansy, I think this movie is incredible. Or I think this movie can really give you that language. Now, whether it's rewatchable is a whole other conversation,
Different,
because
yeah.
I think I watch it thinking like, all right, I've seen it enough. I don't need to see this again.
Yeah,
Like,
it's not a
I'm
casual
good.
watch. It's like
Yeah, not a
you
casual
have to be in
watch.
the headspace for it. And I remember a friend of mine being like, it's kind of like an unlikable protagonist like Tar or I, Tanya, but like now that I've seen it, I'm like, those were at least kind of fun
Yeah,
in some ways. This was, I wouldn't say this is fun. It's not like an escapism in
no,
the way that those two films were.
yeah,
But I guess if you're a fan of like Happy Go Lucky, Secrets and Lies, Vera Drake, like that kind of film, this is something that I would watch. I would highly recommend it. In if you want to watch a movie that is a masterclass in performance, absolutely. Um, I also want us to briefly talk about the Oscars of it all, or the lack of Oscar of it all, because after seeing Marion Jean Baptiste's performance in this, robbed.
yeah.
I'm
At least a
angry.
nomination. At least a nomination.
I've been thinking about this. I would have given her a win. I would have given her a win on this.
Okay, well, just okay, but knowing how the Oscars operate as an
I know.
institution, quote unquote, and
Yeah.
ultimately, it all comes down to like who's campaigning the hardest, who has the money to even campaign. I don't know if she
That
was ever
part.
going to have the machine behind her to get to that point. However, I do absolutely believe that she deserves a nomination, and I see a number 5 that we could have easily taken off that list to give her that spot easily.
Carla Sofia Gascon. So sorry, but like actually
Correct.
not so sorry. Yeah.
But yeah, let's talk about it. So, why do you feel like this film did not get the, even beyond the Oscars, the award season love and recognition that you think it deserved?
It's not an easy sell. It's not it's a very tough film to market other than like this is an art house independent film.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It doesn't have the, I think if they really wanted to market it a certain way, like the idea of how Mike Leigh makes a film, rehearses with his cast, comes in, I think that that's a really cool angle, but that's really only a cool angle for people that get the industry or kind of get, they're really into like the insider baseball of it all, and they
Mm-hmm.
geek out over like a rehearsal process or just like the art of making a movie.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think that it had, again, I think it comes down to like, was this fun to watch in some way?
Mm-hmm.
And with an
Mm-hmm.
Oscar film, there are very depressing and sad
Mm-hmm.
films that are not necessarily fun to watch, but there's something about them in the moment and that fits the zeitgeist of whatever year they're being nominated for. And with this, I think this is going to be a film that we look back on and think, wow, it really should have been a part of this conversation a lot more this year.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but the the marketing and PR folks that are very very smart probably couldn't spin this in a way.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think to your point also about money, for those listening, and maybe I know many people know, but like these Oscar campaigns or the awards campaigns are they're insane. The amount of money that's being spent to get
Yeah.
these films nominated for not only just the Oscars but for every other award leading up to it is massive.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, Anora, Best
Yeah.
Picture, was made for $6 million, which is tiny for
Right.
many films, and they spent 18 million
Right.
on
3
an
times
Oscar
their
campaign.
production budget.
Yeah, so I don't think Hard Truths was going to get that. I also, unfortunately, don't think that not a lot of household names, which is kind of a bullshit reason, but I just think all those reasons they didn't
Yeah.
promote it.
Yeah.
I know that they even had a hard time getting funding for it, even with Mike Leigh's
Mm.
name on it.
Right. It was $2 million for the production
I
budget.
think so, somewhere in
Yeah.
there.
Yeah. I mean, I think all of that is true. I also think if we are kind of looking at the lineage of the types of roles that the Oscars like to acknowledge, specifically for Black people and Black women,
Mm,
this is not a movie that is really digestible. This is not a movie that you can sit and even if like the protagonist is not someone you want to root for, there are redeeming qualities to like characters like Lydia Tarr and Tanya from I, Tonya. I don't think that there was any part of Pansy that people wanted to affirm, but that's the point of the movie. In a way,
Yeah.
the fact that it didn't get any love proves the point even further.
Yeah, and I think it's a film that taps into generational trauma in a way that people
Yeah.
react to like grief and also feeling alienated.
Yeah.
That I think post COVID, I know I felt a reaction to it, and I was like, "Ooh,
Yeah.
I still feel a little bit of PTSD for human interaction and
Yeah.
how I handle certain people in certain situations, and also when I want to handle
Mm-hmm.
people in certain situations, and just being outside sometimes can be very overwhelming, and so."
Mm-hmm.
I know some people that saw it that they felt that did not like it because of that reason.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't enjoy it because it felt too claustrophobic and close to home. And so
Mm-hmm.
I think that there's something to be said about that,
Yeah. Yeah.
But with that, do you have any last thoughts before we unveil our Podmatos score?
Ready? Let's do it.
Okay, so just as a reminder, we based this off of story pacing, acting and characters, direction and style, emotional impact, rewatchability, and lastly, X Factor. So, what was yours?
50 out of 60.
Okay.
Yeah. So basically, I gave, let's see, I gave story pacing 8. I gave acting characters 9. I gave direction and style 8. I gave emotional impact 8. I gave watchability 8. X Factor 9.
Yeah, I mean, mine was the same.
Yeah.
Pretty much. Yeah, I think that the rewatchability is what really just knocked it down a peg, like we talked about. But I still
Yeah.
think it's heavy but brilliant.
Yeah. And
And
it's short. It's not a long movie.
yes,
It's 80. I think it's literally 83 minutes, maybe. I think.
yes.
Yeah.
And listeners, if you know something about me, I love a compact film. I love
Love.
compact theater. I have a controversial take that I mentioned this last time. I do not think that things should be 2 acts. You better be really good, like August Osage County, which is 3. But
3.
yeah, I'd even argue Wicked, make it an act.
Ooh.
Second act of Wicked,
A
and
good 2 hour act though,
that's
right?
fine.
Yeah. Okay.
Second act of Wicked,
Yeah. Are you gonna see For Good?
of course. We're probably going
Okay.
to see it together. Kevin and I saw Wicked and Gladiator in a double feature
We
together.
did in
Which,
November. Wow. Yeah.
yeah, it was lovely. We got a martini in between.
I was so tired though. I was so tired.
Oh, it was really really tiring.
That was brutal. I probably won't do that again.
It was. I mean, that alone was 6 hours of our life. Just those two films.
Yeah. Plus the intermission, which is like in between, which is like
Yeah.
45 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, before we move on to our next one, final thoughts on this is that right after the movie ended, Amazon, where I rented this from, suggested what movie to me?
What?
The Devil Wears Prada.
Honestly, I thought you were going to say some other black movie, and that would have been a whole other segment.
No, it literally the Devil Wears Prada started playing as soon as this was done, and I went, "What? How?"
That's taste though, but that's a highly rewatchable movie though.
100%. But also, where did we go from like? Was it because of Miranda being me?
I mean, Pansy being British, and then Anna Wintour being British, and then Miranda Priestley being Anna Wintour. Like I can kind of see the arc.
Okay, well, we're gonna move on from Kevin's dancing. We're gonna take a little break, and then when we are back, we are gonna be talking about our next film, Payal Kapadia's All We Imagine as Light. We decided that we were going to be talking about 2 films that we felt like were a little bit, I guess, maybe should have been a part of the words conversation and were not. And our second film is also a female-led film by Indian filmmaker Payal Kapadia. All We Imagine Is Light. Now, for a little bit of context, I've known about this film for a while, but Kevin, tell us, what do you know?
Not much. I feel like the film made its rounds in the awards precursors conversations. Obviously, didn't get the Oscar nomination, which we're going to talk about, but it did get the BAFTA, it did get the Golden
Hmm.
Globe. So, not much. But I knew that it was a film that a lot of people were excited about, and we're gonna really kind of dive into why. Yeah.
So this is a film that I've known about for quite some time, just because it won the prestigious Grand Prix award at Cannes last year. This what I love about this movie is that Indian cinema oftentimes isn't heralded in these spaces, which is extraordinarily frustrating. I think people just think of Bollywood, which is Hindi spoken films based out of India. And India has dozens and dozens of languages, and even within that there are hundreds of sub dialogues and things, and each state in India has its own like film industry basically, which is really cool. And so for this film to break out and to also be a film that has lots of different languages, Malayalam, Tamil, Telugu, Hindi, there's lots of different languages in here, is also a testament to just how diverse India is. And to get into a little bit of a synopsis, the film is about the intertwined lives of these three women that are living in Mumbai. There's Prabha, who's like a nurse yearning for her absent
Yes.
husband, that you're like, where is this man? You have Anu, which is her roommate, who is entangled in this like kind of secret relationship with this Muslim man, who I have such a crush on. I have a crush on everybody in this
Really?
movie.
Oh,
Everybody. I
interesting.
found everyone so attractive and so talented in this
Oh
movie. Um,
gosh.
and then lastly, there's sort of a subplot with this other character named Parvati, and she works in the hospital with these two characters, but she faces eviction from her home
Hmm.
basically. um, and I think the last thing that I will say before we really dive into a discussion is, I know for me a lot of my passion and love for film has been about like uncovering stories that are not only challenging but like thought provoking, and a lot of times there's a limited representation of Indian cinema in like Western culture.
Hmm.
Even though I know of it and my friends
Right.
know about it and my family know about it and know the vast array of stories and the complexity of things, not everything is a big musical that's very pulpy, and we call them like masala films, which is sort of
Mm,
like a popcorn film, like an action film, or something that's just like to pass the time. Um, so this is a big deal. This is a
yeah.
really big deal that this movie is being
Yeah.
touted, and this filmmaker is too. But yeah, what were your sort of initial thoughts on
Yeah. I
this?
thought it was a really tender film. I really appreciated the the emotional journey, especially I'm gonna make sure I pronounce her name, Prabha, right? The emotional
Yeah.
journey that she goes on, especially as someone like you said, receives a rice cooker from her.
Yeah.
Granted, it was an arranged marriage, but the husband that she once knew that she lost contact with, and then it really kind of brings her down this path of like, do I miss this person? Do I love this person? They hurt me so much.
Mm-hmm.
I can't get close emotionally to other people because I'm still technically in this marriage. And then to see where she lands at the very end of the film, I just thought it was a very, really beautiful emotional arc. And what I was really struck by, one of the things that I wrote down was the score. So I've never been to Mumbai,
Mm-hmm.
but I can only imagine just how busy of a city it is and how like bustling and loud, right? We talk so much about the noise pollution in New York. Imagining Mumbai is like that times 10. And yet the score,
Mm-hmm.
literally the music that is almost constantly like the background, it's like this like really light piano music that just almost calms you and allows you to settle into the characters and into the movie. And I just thought it was such a great way to contrast the craziness of the world around you and the inner stillness that I feel like the film is trying to evoke.
Yeah, it weirdly like Payal Kapadia, the
Yeah.
director who also wrote the script, she kind of portrays Mumbai as
Mm,
this weirdly lifeless but yet isolating, kind of like how we feel in New York. It's there's so much happening, but at the same time you can feel so alone. And it's kind of full of people yet devoid of the
yeah.
warmth. That's why like she plays with
Yeah. I
blues
saw that.
in terms of the coloring.
Yeah.
Light is a symbol, obviously, throughout this film. I think that it sort of represents internal, external strength, but the cities are often depicted as very
Yeah.
cold. The train scenes, the sequences like on the train where they're taking public
Hmm.
transportation, um, were some of the coolest to me just because that blue and that white
Yeah.
light permeating throughout, and it's so stark, it's so harsh, and you see every pore, every frown line, every tired soul on those trains just like commuting to their jobs. I thought that it did such a wonderful job
Yeah.
of like just portraying like a working
Yeah.
class being very
Yeah.
melancholy in some
And I thought
ways.
about it. I haven't really seen any other example of women, and I'm assuming they come from different generations. Like I knew probably like mid-20s, I would think, and then probably maybe like her different generations, but there's some distance in age between them.
Mm-hmm.
And they're both co-workers, like we talked about, they're nurses at the same hospital, and they're roommates. And I think that creates more texture to their relationship. It feels more sisterly rather than like
Mm-hmm.
a mentor-mentee relationship um, in a professional setting. And then when you add the layer of each of their love lives or their romantic relationships are either evolving or de-evolving, it creates this tension. And I want to talk to you specifically about the one scene where Anu takes her cat to get an ultrasound. So she gets this cat, she's taking care of it. The doctor's doing the ultrasound, Prabha's there, and Anu is just making casual conversation. She kind of reminds me of a Libra, to be honest, just kind of flirting with,
Very much a Libra. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
flirting with
Very much.
everybody, just like having a good time. And at one point, well, after the ultrasound, Prabha basically pulls her aside and goes like, "You can't just like talk to people like that. Like they're gonna think you're slow." And
And she
she's
says that. She says
yes,
it.
yes,
Mm-hmm.
it's on YouTube. And I don't know, there's something really jarring about hearing. It's one thing if people think it. It's another thing when you verbalize it to someone that you're so close with, and what that does, what that can do to a person, how that person can internalize all of those things that they're being told about themselves.
Mm-hmm.
It was just really jarring, and so I wanted to talk a little bit more about like maybe why that scene stood out so much, or like um, why that was so important in our ability to understand how each of these characters operate in the world.
Yeah, I think that's a really lovely scene. I think it highlights that generational
Hmm.
divide of someone that is slightly older and then someone that is coming up as like I think Gen Z as very free, doesn't really want to conform to like the societal standards that has that the the world has set on women, and particularly in India it's a very specific kind of there's a very specific kind of way that progressive versus conservative women have to navigate their
Hmm.
lives
Hmm.
there. And I think it's a real conversation about like we live in this world that at least liberal minded folks teach that independence is supposed to be it's supposed to give you this sense of
Hmm.
freedom, but when you're navigating like intimacy not only with like partners but also with like friends, and in this case a roommate who you consider an elder, a wise like sage person, it like stifles them. And so I think that it's this interesting road of self-discovery, and I think Brubba in that moment also wants to be like
Right,
Anu and wants to be
right,
free and wants to like
right.
flirt and be cheeky with the in this
Yeah,
situation, but she can't for some reason. And so I think it's a really interesting critique on like Indian
yeah.
women and how I think how some often feel overlooked, especially the older
Hmm.
generations feel overlooked by the younger generation and don't feel like, you know, they're being taken care of or seen.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think another scene that I found really really interesting was just the scenes in the hospital, where there are a lot of scenes in this film where Brabha is training a bunch of younger nurses, and just like the chitter chatter in when they're eating lunch and when they are doing like clerical work or admin work, it felt very improvised. It felt like you just heard girls just like talking shit towards one another, gossiping about men, gossiping about like uh, elders, orderlies. Um, and there is this, I think there is this, there's this misconception that like Indian women and Indian men are like super conservative, and they don't talk about sex, and they don't curse, and they don't drink, and they don't do all these things that you're like forbidden to
Yeah.
do. And that's, you know, there is a part of that, obviously. Same with American
Right.
culture, but
Right.
this kind of said fuck that in a really subtle way that I felt found very
Yeah.
refreshing. It wasn't overtly; it just felt very
Yeah.
lived in.
Even the sex scene between Shiraz,
Yes,
Shiraz
Shiaz,
and
yeah.
Anu, who, as you pointed out, like they basically started this relationship at the beginning of the film, and they take it to a new level at the end of the film where they decide to have sex in the woods. Could not be me. However, the
No, I just thought about ants, bugs.
yeah, but there's just something so, like you said, lived in about that scene and how tender it was and how soft. It didn't feel
Mm-hmm.
rushed. It didn't feel um afraid of being vulnerable,
Yeah,
literally, both for the audience and for the characters. I thought it was great. It was great.
I also gasped because we're like, I grew up in a time where in Indian movies, especially like early 90s and 2000s, there wasn't
Yeah,
kissing. The censor boards would cut those things. And I remember when I started seeing kissing in like the late 2000s and like bigger budgeted Bollywood movies, I remember being
yeah,
shocked that I had never, it was just like, "Oh, this feels
yeah,
odd to see these actors like doing things that we see in American TV and film all the time." And even the nudity in this movie, I was, again, I remember writing it down and being like, I don't know why I'm still shocked by
yeah,
this, but in Indian films, I don't see those things that often. Even if it was just very casual and
yeah.
like the nudity in the film is actually, it's not even sexual. It's someone truly just changing, but
Right.
it's just not something that you're used to seeing in mainstream Indian
Yeah,
films.
yeah,
It's the censor board still has a lot of power over what gets seen, what gets shown, which is, you know, I think part of the lore about this is we've alluded to it, but this film wasn't India's Oscar pick, and a lot of critics um, believe that it should have been. I mean, this is a movie that still to this day, after I think almost 100 reviews, is at 100 on
yeah,
Rotten Tomatoes. Like
yeah.
it's, or even more. Don't quote me on that, but there's tons of reviews, and it was critically acclaimed in a way that we haven't seen in a while. But another film called Lapata Ladies, which is a story very different in tone. It's a little lighter, but it's about these two women that kind of go on this like whimsical adventure after sort of being mixed up like around the dates of their
Mhm,
weddings and sort of the journeys that they have to go on. So it's a bit of a lighter film, but still lovely. It's really really
mhm,
lovely. It's just more, it's not as, in my opinion, I don't think it's technically as interesting of a film from a filmmaking
mhm.
perspective, nor are the performances as thrilling to me. I found this to be much lighter,
Softer.
softer, but also still a lot more powerful and like
Yeah,
sad,
yeah,
which, like, you know me, I love a
yeah,
sad film.
yeah.
So I do want to quickly talk about the Anu Shia's romance, because this is a trope that you oftentimes see in Indian films about a Hindu and Muslim character, forbidden love, fraught with societal pressures. What did you think of that as someone who like maybe doesn't hear about those things that often?
Yeah, I think I was trying not to. I think because I knew that this film was already controversial, or like you said, the film didn't get the acknowledgement that it deserved. I was trying not to go into that story trying to identify like what pieces of the film were really catching people off guard or what things like were really a little outside of
Mm-hmm.
the kind of norm, so to speak. Um, but yeah, my context is limited. I feel like it felt authentic. It didn't feel. I guess part of it was that the the just the rapport between the two felt really genuine. And so I'm
Yeah.
really relieved like this type of love story or this type of like dynamic or relationship um not only could exist but should exist. And like it just didn't feel that abnormal to me, but I'm also coming from like a really different cultural understanding of like what types of relationships do we value or what type of relationships do we see as normal. So I think that it added more texture, it added a little bit more color
Mm-hmm.
to um how and when these relationships become something. But yeah, I, it didn't strike me as odd or like I didn't think too much about it when watching it and like thinking about
Yeah,
that.
that's
Yeah.
interesting.
No.
Uh, yeah, I feel similarly just because I've seen it
Yeah.
so much, and I also just think that like it was a not a sore spot in the movie for me, but it was just kind of like I've seen this play
Mm,
out like a Hindu girl and a Muslim guy aren't like supposed to get together, and like that's part of Anu's baggage is
right.
that like even though she's this free spirit, she is still struggling to embrace everything about
Mm-hmm.
herself and like not care in some ways, which is very human. But I think for me, I would have loved something a little bit different because it's 2025. I think that while the Hindu Muslim conflict still a thing for especially our older generations, it's stuff that's it is very complex. I'm not going to try to like unpack it right now on this podcast, but it's still very real, which I appreciated, and it's still a conversation that I hear in from friends, from
Yeah.
family, and I'm just kind of like, guys,
Yeah.
let's just
No.
all be able to like
Yeah.
date and fuck whoever
Yeah.
we want. Like,
Well, I mean, knowing what we know now, what is it about this film that feels like a film that the Indian government did not want to fork as their film? Like,
yeah. I mean, so I think a lot of it was, I mean, there was a lot, they gave a lot of reasons. One of them was that the Oscar or the Indian Film Association that nominates this, like these films to the Oscars, they historically nominate good films, but they don't nominate the right
mm,
film. For if
yeah,
that
yeah,
makes
yeah,
sense. They nominate films that you kind of think are a little puzzling, but they do try to nominate films that are not just the typical Hindi Bollywood type of film. They do go for
yeah.
smaller films that oftentimes are from languages that people might not know, or films that they haven't seen. So I can applaud that. However, their PR reasoning was that it wasn't technically a good enough film
Mm,
to be submitted for the Oscars, but the other film
mm,
was, which I
yeah.
disagree with. I think the other reason is that Payal Kapadia she's very outspoken against the current Indian
Mm,
government. And that is something that still irks them whenever artists, I mean, weirdly, we are feeling it right now within our own government here, which is wild to say. Um, but I mean, a couple years ago, I think the head of Amazon Film out of India, she got arrested because she had opinions about the government, and so it's still something that's very troublesome. And so I think that probably a lot of those reasons it wasn't the pick. But I think because it wasn't the pick, so many people were talking about it and seeing like wondering what this is to cause so much controversy. And when you see the film, you're like, it's not
exactly.
controversial.
Yeah. But I'm also coming from a different cultural context. I don't know. I don't know. I mean, obviously, we chose this film as part of the double feature because we do see parallels with our truth. But before we do that, anything else on Just All We Imagine Is Light that you want to talk about? Scenes, like, like, what else do you think is of
Yeah.
note for the audience? Yeah.
Well, I want to quickly talk about the third character that we haven't, and the
Yes.
the third act of the film, which like is really,
Yeah.
I think it ties it all together in an interesting way. But
Yeah.
the last character is Parvati, and she works in the hospital with these two main characters, and her storyline is kind of like a B storyline in a way, but it wraps itself up in a way that she ends up becoming my favorite character
Yeah. She's great.
in the movie.
Yeah.
Um, but she unfortunately, if it like faces eviction after her husband dies, and it turns out that she actually has no legal rights to like their home, and so she has to leave, and that is unfortunately something you hear a lot about in India. Like
Mm-hmm.
India's economy is booming in so many ways, and yet you can see a beautiful luxury condo on your left, and then to your right is truly a slum
Yeah.
full of people that are just struggling. And so I think it's the idea that where there's progress, it displaces marginalized people, including middle class people. And so they pack up her things and go back to her village that she's from, which is in the south, and it's on the ocean and it's off the coast. And um, I loved that you got a little sense of like village
Yeah.
life,
Yeah.
even down to like the random kid who has that like bar open who's just dancing in the background with his headphones in.
Yeah.
Like there's
Yeah.
just there are little things, the shopkeepers, the haggling between the women of like, I'm not going to pay that for that little tiny item or that like piece of food.
Right.
That is India in so many ways. But yeah, what are your thoughts on that particular character or that storyline?
It's great. I'm recalling the one scene because for so much of it, you don't see Prabha really kind of live outside of her own skin. She's just very soft-spoken. She's very reserved. And then I think about that one scene where her and Parvati are throwing the rocks at what I presume to be like a poster of a government
Mm-hmm.
official or someone of note.
Yep.
Yeah, and they're like little kids. They're like throwing rocks. They're kind of like living outside of like, what's expected of them or what's expected of them as adult women working professional jobs. To your point, I think Parvati ended up becoming one of those characters that really energizes the group and
Mm-hmm.
just kind of like breathes more life. I'm thinking about the one scene where they're inside her shack and they're all dancing.
Dancing.
Yeah,
Uh
they're all dancing, and
yes.
it's just light. It's just very light, and they feel very present.
Drinking whiskey.
Drinking whiskey, and we can thank Parvati for just giving them that other dimension to the characters. It was great. It was great.
Yeah, I loved just those little slice of life moments of like going to the village, because being in a city is very different than like going to a village, and
Yeah.
it's quieter, and that to me is where we talked about the light. That's when the blue and the bright goes
Hmm.
away and it becomes warmer. The
Hmm.
entire color scheme of the film becomes warmer because I think it's, I don't know, I saw it as this interesting metaphor of, oh, we're going to a simpler place
Yeah.
so we can breathe. You like feel the breeze when you're watching
Yeah.
it, and I that's where I'm like technically you guys didn't think that this was an interesting film.
Yeah.
The shots are so interesting, and I've listened to interviews with Payal, and she's such a technician and knows her shit when it comes to like not only filmmaking but just like equipment. Like
Yeah.
she geeks out on this stuff, and so um,
Yeah.
the last thing that I wanted to quickly go over was towards the end of the film, there's this mysterious figure that
Yeah.
kind of like washes up on the
Yeah.
beach.
Yeah.
And we like we're supposed to kind of infer that it's
It's
Prabha's
crazy, by the way. I
husband.
don't know why that'd be my first assumption.
That's what, yeah, I guess because she runs to him, and because she's a nurse, she takes care of him. That's the only thing I could think of. But then she hallucinates that it is her husband,
That's a nation.
later, right?
Okay, so this
See, this is what I thought,
is
but I don't
this
know.
is this is where we have to discuss because one, when that happened, I'll say this first. I thought about Roma. You've seen Roma, right?
Yeah.
The very last scene where one of the kids
Mm-hmm.
gets lost, gets swept into the ocean, and the main character's name I'm forgetting has to go in and save him, and they just end the movie with them on the beach, and they're all hugging, and they're all. I
Yes.
just kept thinking of Roma as I was watching, um, that scene. But I didn't think of it as a hallucination. I thought of it as almost divine intervention, where it really was her husband that she saved on the beach, and when she's confronted with this opportunity to love him again and be close to him again, and he's giving her that chance, she rejects it. But it's rejection from a place of empowerment, and and a rejection from a place of being so
Mm.
being so still in your loneliness. Um, but I guess the point is, it doesn't really matter if it's a hallucination or not, because she is choosing at the end of the day to forget him and to forget this person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I fully thought it was like in her
Yeah, it's
imagination, and
so
she's having a
interesting.
conversation with her
It's so
husband
interesting. Yeah.
so that she can get closure
Yeah.
on the end of that relationship.
It's,
Um, because I think in the beginning of the film, remember she tells Anu that she wishes that her husband would come back one
mhm,
day, and she even asks him to come live with
mhm,
her on the phone, and that's what he says,
mm,
that she wanted to hear from her husband so that she could finally let go.
mm.
Um, but I think that there's like a magical realism
I agree.
to
Yeah.
this that
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
that was the only thing that I. And also, one of my friends, because I was talking to him about this, and he was like, "But that man was suffering from amnesia," and I was like, "Was he? I don't know.
Personally, there's no reason why her husband would be washing up on a beach anyway, so it
No,
just it doesn't make sense that
no,
he was there, but it felt so real. Like it felt
yeah."
so real when she was talking to him, when she was looking at him. So, you know, that's it. I don't know. I got none else more to say other than go
Maybe that was the
go
point. We're not supposed
go
to know.
girl, you know?
I think that was it. That was all I wanted to say about
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Last thing, the three women really embracing Shiaz at the very end. Like for so much of it, like he's just with Anu, but for the other two to like take interest into where he's from and to really like wrap their arms around him, I know was really special for her and for him, and for the dynamic that the four of them will share moving forward. So I just thought it was really sweet. Like you said, it's just very soft and tender,
Mm-hmm.
and I really enjoyed it. Yeah, I really enjoyed it.
Yeah. So with that,
Yeah.
what in the Rotten Podmatoes would you give this? And
Right.
if you don't give it a good score, you don't like Indian people. You heard it on the pod. Kevin does not like Indian people if he gives this a bad score.
Oh, but I love Indian food so much. Okay.
Wow. You love Indian food, so you love
I
Indian
know.
people? You
Well,
sound
no.
white.
No.
It's
All
okay,
I'm
you
gonna
can
say
be.
is, all I'm gonna say. Do you want the breakdown of each one, or just the
Sure.
total score?
Sure, build it up.
All right. So, story pacing, 9. Acting characters, 10. Direction and style, 8. Emotional impact, 10. Rewatchability, 8. X Factor, 8. That's 53 out of 60.
Okay.
Ever had a 6 out of 60, to be really clear. So, like, no one should be coming for me if I don't like this film 100%. Fantastic film. Fantastic.
Yeah, mine was very very similar.
Yeah.
I got this a 54 out of
Okay.
60. Um
It would be
I just
great.
like love the direction so much. That's where we
Oh, so
differ.
you gave it a 10.
This is my kind of movie though. Like this is the shit that I love. I love these quiet little dramedies that like enough happens and it's just like characters, they're flawed. There's not a ton of plot, but like there's enough
Yeah.
because it's just a character driven film. I love it.
Yeah.
Um I saw Pyle's last movie, and I saw one of her shorts, and kind of just fell in love with
Mm,
her as a person, and I want to work with her. Like, she's
yeah.
just so good. Like, this is a really cool, wonderful movie, and I'm glad that people are seeing it. Like, they're taking Indian cinema seriously after this in a way that I haven't heard
Hmm.
about us in the conversation. Like, you think of a lot of European films um, kind of breaking through, and Indian cinema has gotten some love with documentaries last year winning Oscars, and like, with
Hmm.
original song last year, which was a huge deal. So
Yeah.
I'm thrilled, but I hope that I'm thrilled because this movie doesn't try to appeal to like Western audiences. It is
Yeah.
Indian as fuck, and it
Yeah.
just lives in a world that is nuanced and complex, and
Yeah.
just touches upon a lot of things like gender, class, caste, language, and like access to anything. And so I just think that it's refreshing,
Yeah.
so refreshing.
It was great. It was great. What do you want to say about maybe the parallels that you saw between Her Truths and All We Imagine Is Late?
Being a woman is very complicated, and as a man, I my life is so stupid and silly, and like I don't have to deal with half of the shit that many of these characters and women in the world have to deal with. And that is simplifying it in a way that might sound very
Yeah.
caveman and rudimentary, but like that is women without women we would be nothing. And I often find that without female artists, I wouldn't be here,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
I don't care about the men as much. I don't
Yeah.
care about the characters. I don't care about the work as often, even though they're heralded as like the best. i
Hmm. Hmm.
i think female driven stories and characters are so much more interesting and complex because they have to be in some ways.
Mm.
um but yeah, I think that and also the importance of like family,
Hmm.
and how the world can really harden your perspective to
Mm.
keep going and to keep living. um and like being outside is tough. Being a human outside in the world
Being a human
is
outside is
tough.
tough.
It
It's
is.
tough.
What about
Yeah,
you?
that. No, I think you said it perfectly. I have nothing else to add other than um I'm glad we have granted Mike Leigh is not a female director, but I'm glad we have artists out there who are really compelled by and interested in telling these types of stories because I do think that they just make for better better art. Just make for better
Mm-hmm.
art. So thank you, Mike Leigh and Payal for giving us these two films that we can talk about and to just savor. Do you think actually, um, is All We Imagine Is Light a film? Because we talked about Horror Truths not being the most rewatchable film, but All We Imagine Is Light. Do you see this as a rewatchable film?
No,
Mm,
I don't. I see it definitely being much more rewatchable than Hard Truths.
okay,
um I do find that this is a I think in a couple of years I'll rewatch it, but it's not something that I'm going to put on.
casually.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, I
There
get it.
there are other movies that I think are in this same kind of genre that I find a little bit more like, I hate to say fun, but a little bit more interested. Yeah, no, it is fun. It is fun. Like sometimes when you're rewatching something, you want that fun and that comfortability. And with this is a film that you have to pay attention to. You have to watch to get to the nuances.
Yeah,
So I'd recommend anyone watching it at least once,
yeah,
and then taking some space, because it's a slow burn,
yeah,
but it's wonderful. What about
yeah.
you?
It's just about what type of headspace I'm in and like what type of movie I need to watch. But it doesn't take away from my ability to enjoy it each time, if that makes sense. But it's gonna be some time before I settle back into a film like this, or this film in particular, and like want to engage and want to be so captivated by every small nuance. But I'd say the same. Yeah.
I think a big part of it too is that I think this for me, the performances are fantastic all across the board, every
Mm-hmm.
person, but they're small.
Mm-hmm.
They're all very small, lived in. It's not really like you're watching a film. It kind of just feels like you're watching people navigate life, which is part of its brilliance.
Right.
Like, I would honestly, now that I'm thinking about this in real time, I would probably watch Hard Truths before I watched this
Oh,
again.
interesting.
Only because to
Hmm.
watch Marianne's, like, there are moments where I will just watch her monologue.
Right. Yeah. And that's funny. Like that's the thing about Hard Truths. It was a deeply disturbing, unnerving film, but when she goes off on her tangents and her fucking monologues, she is
So fun.
funny.
Yeah. So there you go. Well, that concludes our segment of the week for our films, right?
So you can find Hard Truths on Amazon Prime.
Oh, yes.
I also found All We Imagine on Amazon Prime too to rent.
Yep.
So
And it's on the Criterion Collection, too.
and also Criterion Collection. So go find it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Should we be hyping up Amazon?
No.
I know. Go find it anywhere else, people.
Was playing at BAM up until like maybe 2 weeks ago.
Yeah. If you can see either of these films in
Yeah.
the theaters, I would definitely go do that. And welcome back. I'm going to be practicing my my NPR voice.
Okay.
Because
Ooh,
the last
okay.
2 times we did this, I was, say it with me, too loud and screaming into the mic. So I'm trying not to do that. But now we're going to move into our next segment called, and Kevin does not know. I have just come up with these, so we're gonna workshop them for the first couple weeks. We may change these completely. We may
Yeah.
change the podcast name.
Yeah. That's
so
true.
Get ready. We're moving into the next segment called Tinseltown Tea. Film industry gossip and news.
I like that. I do like that.
Great.
Let's keep that. Let's keep that.
Cool.
Let's keep
Yeah. Okay, so you have something that you've been wanting to share with me for an hour now. So why don't you pick it up?
I recently started watching The Studio on Apple TV. Now,
Yes.
it is not a movie. It is a TV show, but it is about Hollywood. It is about the business of making movies. And I really do think it is the type of frenetic, like sweaty comedy that I feel like just makes me giggle. And Seth Rogen is playing the perfect type of studio exec. We've got amazing cameos. Highly recommend people check it out because it is pretty quality television. And I think it's a good depiction of where a lot of studio heads are in Hollywood, in that there's a constant tension between the art of film and the commerce of film. And where do you, as a person, as a business leader, fit, or like where you kind of make your mark? So really good.
Yeah. I also very much enjoyed it. Watched the first 2 episodes. I think that's all that's out right now. But for those that don't know, as Kevin mentioned, Seth Rogen plays the newly appointed studio head of I want to say it's like a Sony type studio.
Well, I mean, the Catherine O'Hara character is basically Amy Pascal, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So Sony.
I assume. Yeah. And basically, Seth Rogen's character wants to make real films, art films, and wants to make films that withstand the test of time, but also wants these films to make money, which is a huge conversation happening in Hollywood right now about how to make independent film profitable. And Bryan Cranston plays his boss, who then basically says, you have to make a movie about, say it with me,
Kool-Aid
Man. And there's some really fun cameos. There are some really, really interesting filmmaking techniques. Everything is done in kind of like a one shot, and
almost, yeah.
It is the energy is very frenetic. I think I've heard some criticism of it about like how no one would actually believe that Seth Rogen would be that kind of studio head, which like I can get. I'm fully into the fantasy.
Yeah.
I think that like those critiques are so picky. Like, and I think it's mainly because like he wouldn't freak out about going to a party at like Charlize Theron's house.
I mean,
and I'm like,
it's all. I mean, not that it's all made up, but like it's fictional, y'all.
Yeah.
Can we just not have fun? Can we just?
Yeah. This is also a show that I remember it being announced and me being like, I want to be on this. I want to work with Catherine Hahn. Oh, Catherine Hahn. Catherine Hahn.
Catherine Hahn and
Catherine Hahn and Catherine O'Hara.
yeah.
Yeah, two different Catherines spelled
Yeah.
two different ways.
Both big characters too.
Big characters. So fun. I'm really interested in what they do next with it. Greta Lee also comes in the second episode she comes in as like a guest star. Her and Sarah Polley are really fucking funny. And I don't know who this actor is, but the actor who played the PA in the second episode, fantastic.
Yeah. Really spot on
good.
too. Yeah. Like it gives you a good sense of the energy on a set. You know what I mean? Just the go-go-go-ness of it all. But yeah, anyway.
Yeah. Well, is that all you have?
Well, the Beatles biopic just got announced in terms of the 4 leads. So we have our 4. I didn't grow up with the Beatles, so I'll probably watch maybe 1 or 2 of them because I'm interested to see them as like a 4-piece film series. But I doubt that I'll really be invested enough to see all 4 unless they're really that good. And I'm just like, okay, I don't know.
I know. Sam Mendes is doing a 4-part Beatles 4-part, 5-part.
It's 4 different films.
4 different
each
films.
One will be from the perspective of each of the 4.
Yeah, and it's got Paul Mescal
as Paul McCartney. We've got
Barry
Keoghan as Ringo Starr, Harris Dickinson as is that John Lennon?
Yeah, I think so.
And then who is who's Doja Cat's new boyfriend? No, the white guy that she's dating.
Joseph Quinn.
Who's he?
Creepy twin in Gladiator.
Yeah, he's the other one, George. Right? I don't know the Beatles.
I didn't grow up with them either, unless it came up in an Indian song. Like right. I didn't really listen to them either.
No. But yeah, those are our 4. So not bad actors, all really good actors.
Yeah.
But the people they're playing, I don't have a personal investment in. So we'll see. It's also coming out in 2028. So
yeah,
who knows where we'll be by then.
I won't say any more on that, only because it is a part of my hot take at the end.
Ooh, okay.
Which is a little preview. That is, yeah. I had a fully different hot take, and then I saw that notice come up, and I was like, okay, we have thoughts. I only have a couple. We have a Minecraft movie coming out.
We do.
On Friday. Jason Momoa, Jack Black. Apparently, they think that we should have a Minecraft movie right now. And I think it comes out on Friday, and by the time people listen to this, it will already have been out. But the Twitter reviews from some of the reviews, because I think the review embargo is up. And one of them literally just said, wow, that was indeed the worst thing I've ever seen in my life.
Stop. Really?
I wanted to walk out, but I couldn't because it's my job.
Damn.
Yeah, tough.
Wow.
Yeah. Danielle Brooks, we love her. She's in it.
We do.
She's making
and
a
I
check.
get it. She may want to check, but
yeah,
that's bleak.
Yeah, which also I don't know what Minecraft is about, and so I looked it up, and on their website it literally says Minecraft has no set goal and can be played however you'd like. Which, first of all, I don't like games.
Yeah.
So, but when I do like games, I need rules.
Yeah.
So for you to tell me there's no set goal and you can do whatever the hell you want, I'm already mad.
So I only know this because my little brother, I've got a brother that's 5 years younger. He would play Minecraft growing up, and I would watch him play. And that's basically it. You get to make your own rules. But it's got the younger generation hooked.
Isn't it just you're building blocks?
But you're also establishing towns, and you're building a life, this virtual life, literally.
So Sims.
Yeah, but it's less detailed. It's like little blocks of things rather than.
Is it on your phone or your computer?
No, it's on a console.
Oh.
Yeah.
The last game I played that was on it was like Roller Coaster Tycoon.
Yeah. Well, no, that feels like a DB Was that on the PlayStation?
No, that was like a disc that you put into your CD that you put into your computer. I never
Right. So
played it on a PlayStation.
it's almost like a DVD like disc.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Well, Vishal, you're also back to
77 years old. I know. My age has come up a lot in this episode, which is not great.
but
The only I have two quick ones.
yeah.
Leonardo DiCaprio, Dwayne Johnson, The Rock,
Oh, the Martin Scorsese, the Emily Blunt one.
Emily Blunt.
Yeah.
They're all working together on Martin Scorsese's next, apparently, allegedly. And there's no word on the plot.
Yeah. Keep it under wraps. I'm excited about that.
Yeah.
I don't want to know anything.
Yeah.
Yeah. We finally got the trailer for One Battle After Another, also starring Leo and Sean Penn and Regina Hall and Tiana Taylor.
But also, does it star Regina Hall? Because she was not in that trailer that
It
much.
was. She had one flicker of a scene.
But like Tiana Taylor was in it.
Well, because I think she's playing his wife.
I mean, I love her. I just
Yeah.
was not expecting her to be
So big.
centered in the trailer. And I know it's like
Yeah.
it's a teaser, but like
Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
we don't know how much screen time they're going to have. They might both be supporting, but in different ways. Let's just go though. Let's fucking
oh
go.
yeah, no,
Let's go.
I think I'm ready for it.
Yeah.
And the last thing that I wanted to discuss was the Mickey 17 Oscar curse, because there has been a lot of discourse online about Bong Joon-ho's latest film, Mickey 17, the director of Parasite, which we stan. We love that.
Great
you know,
film.
yeah, what a treat to just dwell in someone's basement and then creep out. That was the goal of the film, right?
That's
I
my
understood
goal.
the deeper meaning. Yeah, there's some people sort of whispering about like the best director curse, because directors who win Oscars oftentimes struggle with their next film. So like Chloe Zhao with like Immortals, Tom Hooper with like
Eternals.
Oh wait, what was Immortals?
Not Immortals.
Wait, Immortals was that Henry Cavill movie
I don't remember watching that one.
years ago. He was naked. That's all I remember.
Eternals was the Chloe Zhao mode. That was
Immortals had Frida Pinto, I think. I might have just made up a film.
You might have. I don't remember that at all.
We're gonna leave it at that. We'll keep it in. And like Damien Chazelle with like Babylon. I don't know. I think he's gonna be fine, but there is a lot of whisper about like. I think there's a bigger conversation about why Mickey 17 did not do well, but I think it's also that like it wasn't marketed appropriately. I think the trailer told a very different story from what we were fed. I also just don't think that the movie was like up to his standards in general, but I don't know. I hate that we do this with like, especially with like Black and brown creators. Like, we're not ever given the same amount of investment, and yet our films always have to hit, and yet there's all these pieces in Variety and Hollywood Reporter that are bullshit, and they're like, well, why is this failing? And it's like, we don't give that level of press to like white creators. Netflix just sunk to $320 million in that Millie Bobby Brown film.
Which is a crapshoot.
Yeah, I've seen some articles, but like I get frustrated about that.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think it goes the other way too. There's obviously, I think, bigger expectations, especially when it comes with a blank check from a studio for these winners of Best Director. But from the other direction, I'm seeing a trend where we're giving these auteurs like maybe Nia DaCosta, who did an incredible job with Candyman, right? Candyman, and it was given the Marvels, and her bar was so high that she didn't, meet that one, and we don't know what that's going to mean for how her career develops. And then it almost never feels like the Black and brown directors or creators ever get their shot at making the movie that they want. And so it just kind of comes from both sides, I feel like,
I agree. Very frustrating.
But I think like ultimately, and this goes for Paul Thomas Anderson as well, but if Bong Joon-ho and Paul Thomas Anderson can get blank checks from Warner Brothers to make the movies that they want, get their money at the end of the day, I have nothing else to say. I'm not a shareholder at Warner Brothers. Like, that's it, you know?
And I will be one
Yeah.
day. I will be the actor that is in every single film. I will bring back the studio system for my benefit, and I will run Hollywood into the ground.
Yeah.
Ha 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 ha.
From your lips to God's ears.
Thank you
That's all
so
I'll say.
much.
That's all I'll say.
Thank you so much. Then we won't need this podcast anymore.
Maybe we'll still do it just because it's fun.
Yeah. Well, no, I think I'll have other things. You can
Sure,
carry on.
leave me? Got it. Cool.
Maybe.
I'll get a new co-host. It's fine.
Yeah, get another Indian guy. We're replaceable, just like in Hollywood. Did I tell you one time I walked past Aladdin on Broadway and someone asked me or said, "You did a great job."
No, they did
Not in the show. Have auditioned many times. Have never booked.
That is wild.
Yeah, so I signed his playbill.
Wait, you went through with it?
I said thank you.
That is hilarious.
It's happened a bunch of times actually.
What?
Yeah.
I mean,
Especially now that there are Indians actually playing Aladdin and Jasmine, they,
Right.
you know.
I mean, the thing about it is that I never do this in public, but like, I can almost see a world where someone did that. But I think I'd have to be so sure that it's them before I even attempted to go up to you and ask for your autograph. You know what I mean? Like, where's the
Yeah.
shame?
Yeah. I don't know. They were white. What do you like? I
Right.
don't know what else to say. They were tourists too.
Okay.
Still white.
what is it? Okay. From Kansas? Anyway.
Yeah. Oh yeah, white people. If you listen to this, you're gonna get made fun of a lot by us. Like
Black people too. I don't know. I've got
Indian people also. You're gonna get made fun of a lot.
No one is sick, to be honest.
Well, let's just stick to our people and white people. Let's.
No one is safe.
Any more hot topics, or is that
No.
it for? Okay. Well, we're gonna take another break.
Tea.
I know. Well, I'm glad that the name stuck. We'll take another break, and then when we're back, we will move into our next segment. Now, if you've made it this far, lovely. Thank you so much for sticking with us. But we are in our last segment that we'd like to call I Said What I Said, where Kevin and I take a hot take that might be controversial, beloved, or could get us canceled, and we dissect it. Now, I have been tasked with going first. So, this is my hot take this week. I am very tired of the same white men booking everything right now. And this is what we said earlier. We talked about this Beatles film that's about to be a 4-film Beatles film about every Beatle. And don't get me wrong, all these actors I love. I think they're all very talented. I think they're all very deserving of their moment. However, Sam Mendes, you want us, and by the way, Sam, I'd love to work with you. You're a brilliant director. You want to create 4 separate films about the most over-documented band in history and not spread them out. You want us to just binge them in the movie theater in a day? This is not a TV show. This is a film. The idea that anyone asked for this film is wild to me. This is just pure indulgence by a filmmaker, and it feels like a cash grab to me. It does not feel like something that should or needs to be made at this point in time. Which leads me back to my point of these white men constantly booking the same jobs over and over again. I can't pretend that this is like not a part of a bigger issue. Like this industry's willingness or inability or unwillingness to elevate non-white actors to the same pedestal. I'm so tired of it. The amount of opportunities that these guys have had to showcase the breadth of their artistry, incredible. Being an actor, fucking hard. We don't get opportunities that often. But I remember a decade ago, we kept being told like we're in like a leading man crisis. Like, where are the leading men? And suddenly we're back to the same upcoming like white guys that and I it's the same people while like black, Latino, Asian actors are still struggling to like break in. Um and I feel like after Black Panther and Crazy Rich Asians and like other things that we there was a period of time in Hollywood where like everything was diverse, if you will. But now it's to a point where like the pool of opportunity is just not there. They're
Mhm,
not giving us opportunities anymore. And I hope that one
mhm,
day, like, I think of like Kelvin Harrison Jr., Aaron Pierre, Dave Patel,
mhm,
Manny Jacinto, like all of these very Chidi from The Good Place. Like, where are all of their leading parts?
mhm.
They're all trained, equally deserving actors. Dave Patel had literally had to make a movie for himself to be a lead in something that took him out of his like the stereotypical roles that were coming his way. So you're going to hear this rant a lot from me, but it's just something that I'm so tired of. I'm not going to knock these actors because I do like them. And I also like it's again, this industry is not about being fair. It's an industry that is built on inequity. Um, but I'm tired. And this is a film that when I first heard it was announced, I was like, this is a studio realizing that like this is a gamble that they're taking to make a cash grab, and I am not even sure that it's going to make money. Who
So
asked for this?
is your list when I said that we shouldn't have four Beatles movies? Just to be clear.
I don't think so.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that that's the proof of it.
I don't think we should have four Beatles movies. I also don't think that we should continue to have like the same actors in the same things over and over again. Like these are not actors that I'm thinking are opening films at this point still. Like I don't know. I'm still very frustrated by like we allow white artists opportunity after opportunity to stretch their muscles and like showcase what they can do. We don't afford black and brown actors the same leeway.
100%.
Very frustrating.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's it.
Okay.
Now what's yours?
Okay, so mine actually came to me while you were talking. I was going to talk about The Help, but that just feels too
Hmm.
dated. I was gonna I said what I said was The Help is great cast but bad movie. And I've just been toiling with this idea that like, is it a good movie? Is it a bad movie? Don't know. However, my rule one is that Jonathan Majors is back on his PR campaign,
Hmm.
and it recently came out. We talked about this
Hmm.
that Kiki Palmer is going to have him on um her show, her podcast. And Kiki Palmer is she's like everybody's cousin, you know.
Hmm.
You want to love her. She's so lovable. She's so down to earth. I do think it's time for us to just be a little bit more honest with how actors and broadly speaking, those in the wealthy class stick together. Even when
Mm.
it may not feel as convenient or um, realistic for them to do so, they always stick together. It's funny because Kiki Palmer has had her own fair share of instances with men being harassed and borderline sexually assaulted. So she has no trouble talking about her own stories and really being the voice for that.
Just to be
But
clear, you're saying men have harassed and sexually assaulted her.
she's explicitly said that Trey Songz, for example, has
Right.
done some other shit. I believe that. But the moment that, a friend of yours or a black man in Hollywood is accused of the same thing,
Hmm.
it's like some of that or none of that matters. Or like we're supposed to just let this person back into our collective lives for what? So I say that because I think it's really easy to like to take people out of this narrative that oh they're different or they're not like everyone else in Hollywood or they're not like everyone else in this community. But more times than not, we're wrong and they are. That's all.
Yeah, it's. I sent that to you and was like, God damn it, Kiki! I just watched One of Them Days yesterday. Loved it. I did do like I was looking this up too, and it seems that a part of a lot of the conversation is going to be about what happened to him and what he's done. I don't know if she's going to press him on I don't know what this interview is because I have not heard it. But she brought Lizzo on, who's facing her own. She's brought Lizzo on, who and I listened to that interview, and Lizzo kind of, in my opinion, just deflected, didn't really give answers to the questions, and so I. But I also like those are still in court. There's still lots of things to be determined, but yeah, I also just wonder if this is just like, is this a ratings thing? Because she's got us talking about it. She's got people that are going to tune in. I don't think it's. I don't. I don't know.
I see your point. That just feels really weak to
Mm,
me. Like, there's no denying she is a dynamic personality. She could read a phone book in her readings.
100%.
I do think if there's any, yeah, I hope that's not the case. But you never know. You never know. Never know. So that's it. Disappointed, but not surprised.
Well, Kiki,
Oh,
Godspeed.
Kiki.
Godspeed. That should be the segment title. Well,
God,
Kiki.
well, Kiki, Godspeed. I said, but I said it better though. It's a Nene Leakes, like it's in the Hall of Fame of
I
Nene
know.
Leakes sayings. It's perfect. It's
I
perfect.
know. We need to get Nene on the pod.
We do. What movie do you think she'd like really go to bat for?
The one that's current?
Anything, I guess. But yeah, maybe current. Yeah.
I feel like I don't know actually.
Yeah.
To me it based off of what I've watched all of Atlanta.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't I have no idea. I don't even remember a single episode where like she saw a film or watched anything. Like I don't know what things
Mm.
she's interested in.
Next episode we start with here's our film. Here's our pick. And we make a case
Mm,
for it. We make a case for it.
yeah. I feel like it might be a weird one.
Yeah. Yeah. Where's she from? I'm really bad with
Wait, what?
like where's she from? Like she from Atlanta?
Yeah,
Hmm.
pretty sure.
We should know this, but
I
okay.
mean,
Well,
should we? Oh no, well she was born in Queens.
she's from Atlanta. Well, maybe she was raised there, but she was born in Queens, so maybe she's like a Spike
That's the thing.
Lee.
She grew up in Athens, Georgia. Like
Okay, okay,
yeah, like she was born in Queens, but she grew up in Georgia.
okay. So she's a Georgia Peach. Okay,
Yeah. I think she spent a lot of her time. She was raised in Georgia.
okay. Yeah. Right, Sleeks.
Well, that's the end of this episode.
That's it.
Guys, we did it. This is our first
Yeah.
one, and we're only going to get better and better. You're going to hear things that we're going to improve upon, and probably things that you're like, why did they talk about that?
You can already hear Damo being like, it was too fucking long.
Ew.
It's a long podcast. Yeah.
You know what's
100%.
also long? The flight to Australia.
Ooh.
So you can give him that.
Well, they're doing
It's too
direct soon.
long.
They're doing direct soon. Now you have to fly to either New Zealand or LA, but they're going to do direct soon.
That's awful.
Yeah. Yeah. Like 15, 16 hours.
I did that to India one time, and then they got rid of the flight like
Yeah.
a year later. It was just too long for people.
Exactly. None of the people are taking it. Yeah.
No.
But
And that's it for this week for What the Film. If you enjoyed, please subscribe, leave a review, tell us your opinions into the void, and also just keep listening. We'll see you next time.
see you.
Bye.